is there's something inside of you that you have to find, and it's like a pinhole. And that pinhole is all about you. No one who has existed, who is existing, or who will exist has this. It's only you. You are your own universe. So when you understand that, here's what happens. You will find, if you find that pinhole and dump all your time, energy, wisdom, knowledge, all parts of you, you dump it into that. It's amazing what happens. Why? Because when you do that and you dump yourself into your talent, if you truly can find it, this is where you need mentorship. You need people telling you, listen, go here, don't go here. This is truly what you're good at. You need that mentorship there to find your talent. Then when you dump yourself into your talent, you become more rare because that talent is rare. And when you become more rare, you become expensive because your thoughts are expensive in that domain.
Time for a change now.
No hesitation. Tune in, yo. Acez motivation. It's all about your will. When your enemy is weak, go for the kill.
Welcome to ShotCast episode 23, and today we have Wissam Bazzi, who's a life coach, a motivator, executive performance coach. I know you got a major in neuropsychology. You've been hosted on TED Talks that I've seen, and you've also been on stage with big names and some of my mentors like Les Brown, David Goggins, and Robbins. So welcome to the show today, Wissam. Thank you for being here.
Man. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. This is what we do, man. So just people like you, and let's do this. Whatever we're gonna do, let's do it.
Listen, man, my channel is called Acez Motivation. Your main profession is motivation, so we're here to talk about how to keep that motivation going, how to keep that fire going. And you're the perfect guy to talk to. And how'd you get into this life coach motivation?
Well, number one, man, just to kind of take you a little bit back with my story. For me, as a young kid, I've always wanted to be in a situation where you help others. And I think there's an innate aspect to that. So what that means is really, if you're a listener, really, if you're trying to find out who you are as a person, I think that's the biggest journey. When you take a dip to the inside, you cast your conscious mind to your subconscious wiring, and you begin to figure out who you are. I think when you do that, you begin on a journey of a life journey, actually. And for me, as a young kid, when I would look back and see how I would want to be portrayed as a person, let's say in the future, I always had things where I would think about helping others or doing the things for people who were in need, you know. So I always found myself in these kinds of situations. So I had that kind of innate aspect to me. But ultimately, how do you take that and you just merge it into something where you become something greater? And let alone when you're a kid, you can't even help yourself. How do you take care of your room first? Then maybe you go out to the kitchen and you wash the dishes. So you're taking on more responsibility. And then from there, maybe you cut the grass. So you're leaving your room, you're leaving your house. Then from there, maybe you go to the neighbor's house and you say, you know what, I'll do this for you for a few bucks. So you're expanding in responsibility. I think once you do that properly, as you're being honed and your software is being downloaded, I think it's amazing what happens there. So for me, when I was going through this, I came across this point in my life where I had to make a decision. And I think the strongest piece I can give anyone who's listening here is there's something inside of you that you have to find, and it's like a pinhole. And that pinhole is all about you. No one who has existed, who is existing, or who will exist has this. It's only you. You are your own universe. So when you understand that, here's what happens. You will find, if you find that pinhole and dump all your time, energy, wisdom, knowledge, all parts of you, you dump it into that. It's amazing what happens. Why? Because when you do that and you dump yourself into your talent, if you truly can find it, this is where you need mentorship. You need people telling you, listen, go here, don't go here. This is truly what you're good at. You need that mentorship there to find your talent. Then when you dump yourself into your talent, you become more rare because that talent is rare. And when you become more rare, you become expensive because your thoughts are expensive in that domain. that's what you really need to find within yourself as a person. And that journey can take a lifetime. The earlier you get there, the stronger you will become and the more change you can have, where you not only cut your neighbor's grass, you can start a whole company and you can take over so many accounts in terms of short periods of time. Because what your talent does is this: it allows you to do things much faster than any other person that's out there. And when you do that, you generate high quality with what? Small amounts of time. That's what a talent is. So when you understand that and get yourself, and you can build not just a long company, you can build multiple companies in terms of successful companies. That's what happens in terms of talent and understanding that. So for me, I had to go on an internal journey. I had to get myself to see where I was brave enough and I had enough courage to say, you know what? This is what I want to follow, regardless of the stamp of money. You have to have courage, because most people will tell you, I can't do this because I got to pay the bills. I can't do this because I got to do this. Don't give those excuses to yourself. You know when you're lying to yourself. At the end of the day, find your passion. Do that by finding out what you're genetically encoded for. Have your passion push you through to the goal you want to set for yourself as a human being that can change the world. That is how you should be thinking. So for me, when I went on this journey, that decision for me was a point when, in terms of psychology or marketing, and I looked at myself and I said this thing, and I said, do I as a person want to help people, or do I want to just generate money, which is marketing? For me, it was more about the psychology going into that. And it really, really touched me as a person when I started seeing what I can do. But I went there because I was trying to discover who I was first. I went towards psychology for self-discovery, not trying to help anyone. And then it just emerged from there, because your talent just shines through. And just to give you a little bit more of where I come from very hard background. I actually come from war. And I was born and like bombs were flying over the hospital. So these things are not easy to handle when you're a kid, because I wasn't born here. But I remember when we wouldn't have electricity, when we wouldn't have these things, and just coming from these humble, that humble background, when you get to a place like the United States, it's like, man, do you realize what you have when you live here? We don't, man. We really don't, Al. And I think that for me was that driving factor, that my dad, within 7 months of being in the States, he bought a house. So when people tell me like, hey, I can't do this, or I can't pay my rent, I'm like, man, 5 kids, a wife, no language, in 7 months, the man bought a house. So if someone like that can do it, I'm sure you can do it. So, well, that's a little bit about my background, and just that pinnacle, that decision that you have to make, where it's in the fork in the road, and you just make the right decision. And that decision, you don't have to clean up later. It's just you're laying down more tracks so you can speed up.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And that's very coincidental that you're talking about that, because last week we just did a show, hypnotherapists, who we went deep into the psychology and the subconscious as well to discover that. Now, you said that for you, that everybody has a uniqueness or a talent inside. So you're saying everybody listening, everybody out there has something, or is there some people that really don't have something?
Well, I mean, if you look at the science, it's very clear. Even twins. So in terms of, you look at your own physiology or your own biology, even twins don't have the same DNA. And they're very close, but at the end of the day, they're different.
Yeah.
So, and no two people have matching DNA. It's just scientifically proven. So what is that uniqueness which is generated inside of you that no one else has? So just by the mere science, there is a difference that you have that no one else has. On that standard, find it. You have to find it within your own self. The journey is not to the outside, it's to the inside. The person who goes towards self-disclosure and self-discovery will look into their own being for who they are. When you do that, here's what happens. You stop the comparison factor towards the outside. You start looking inside towards self-discovery. Once you do that, what you find you have to be responsible for. And what that means is the things you have to be brutally honest with yourself as a person. Listen, I'm an addict here. I don't like what I do here. I keep shutting people off here. I have an anger problem here. You start going into dissection mode of who you are, and you start changing that. Once you do that, that is true motivation. That's the ultimate motivation. It's not how many likes you get on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. It's not, that's not what motivates you. It actually demotivates you when you don't get the likes. So there's a problem there in terms of your own mental structure. If you are doing that, if you get your security from the outside versus the inside, there's a problem. I'm not going to get into that too much. But from there, once you go to the inside, you take responsibility for who you are. And every decision you make, what happens? You stop blaming the world and everything else. That's the highest form of maturity. When you are honest with yourself, brutally honest, and you take responsibility for every action, you become literally your own star. And you start moving to other realms that no one can touch you, but your confidence grows at tremendous levels. Once you do that and you take the journey to the inside, you build something called self-efficacy. And what self-efficacy is your reputation with yourself. What you think of your own ability. I'll give you a different example in terms of a scientific aspect. What we do in terms of testing confidence, this is the way we do it. We give you 2 sheets of paper. We tell you there's a list of words on each paper. Study them. Then we'll ask you, okay, we'll say a word and you'll see, is it on sheet 1 or sheet 2? But from there, you'll say, okay, you know what, sheet 2. Then we'll ask you, how confident are you? Some people will get it completely wrong, but they have full confidence. It's incredible what happens there when you build that reputation with yourself. And let me tell you a little bit more about that, Ellen. It's amazing once you understand that with the human brain. Your self-esteem is not from you. Your self-esteem is from your own mind. It's the wins and losses that you have gone through in life. Your mind is a directory. It keeps a directory of your wins and losses. It tallies that for you. And it hands you your emotion about yourself and how much you should respect yourself. How much do you believe in yourself? That's handed by the results that are acquired in life. Your brain automatically does that. So when I challenge you, you're either going to feel weak and release cortisol, which is a stress hormone, or you're going to feel strong and confident and you're going to release serotonin, which is completely different biological streams now. You're talking human engineering at a completely different level. That's amazing when you really think about that. That's the person who releases the serotonin who's running towards the fire versus where everybody else is running away from the fire. That's leadership. But that's completely different makeup inside that human being. It all starts with what? Self-efficacy. Your reputation with yourself. What you think of your own ability. And to give you an example, and I finish with this. And if you're a viewer, think about this. Think of when you do a trust fall with someone. When you do a trust fall, you fall back and someone what? Catches you. Think of a trust fall when no one's behind you and you have to catch yourself. Would you believe in your own ability to do that? That's the reputation you need to have with yourself. That you can walk out onto the plank and you know you're going to survive. That's who you are. Your reputation now with yourself exceeds any challenge that's outside of you. That's strength. But that's not just physical strength. That's mental strength. That muscle is much, much stronger and it can lift so much more weight. It's incredible what happens when you get yourself to that realm.
So I hear you saying two things there. The first thing I hear you saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my quest is always to be the best version of myself. And I believe when your quest is to be the best version of yourself, everything else will follow because the confidence will lead there. So that's something that I heard you say that I follow deeply when I talk about motivation. It's just about finding out the best version and trying to be that best version every single day and try to increase that every single day. So is that kind of what you're saying there?
100%, man. Because at the end of the day, there's a beautiful saying, and it says, whoever's day is the same as the next or the last day that they just spent has been fooled by life. So you always want to be in progression mode. Whenever you're trying to reach your own optimal self, which is your highest form of completeness, you start understanding that the journey is not to be anyone else, but your own maximum potential. You stop comparing, because once you realize that when you compare, here's what happens. I compare the surface level. When I compare myself to someone negatively, what happens, and this is why most of us get held back, by the way, from our own optimal potential, is we compare ourselves to the outside. Once you compare, you take the surface aspect. And when you take the surface aspect, you look at someone's house, their car, maybe how good looking their spouse is. You take these things and you justify that to yourself as success. But if you truly want to have a comparison, don't just look at the outside. Look at the inside of that person's life. Look at the fact that they probably can't sleep more than 2 hours a night.
Look at all this.
Exactly. There you go. Their wife may have cancer. Or look at their problems. Don't just look at what looks good to you on the surface. Take their problems too. If you want to compare their problems as well, not just their success. Most of us don't do that.
Compare their quest as well too.
There you go. So, and that kind of factor, if you understand that, you will stop comparing and you will look inward. What makes me me? So now if I have to, my own challenge is to create a person in the future that has these amazing characteristics, that I see myself in 4 years. If you're just about to go into a university, I see myself holding my university diploma. I see myself graduating. I see myself running my own business. That goes now into mental imagery and you kind of projecting who you want to be. There's an ideal self and there's a feared self. And this is the way you should use it. So how do you become that maximum potential? I can give you something that's worked for me at a completely different level. The feared self and the hoped self, literally the ideal person you want to become in the future, and the person who you're trying to avoid, that feared self. These are psychological concepts. Now, what happens? How should you format this? You should make a list of the person you fear to be. Meaning, take the responsibilities. I have to pay my bills. I have to take care of my wife. I have to make sure I take care of my schoolwork. I have to make sure that I have to take care of multiple people, let's say across the board. Let's say I have multiple companies. These are responsibilities. I don't want to falter on my responsibilities. So I have a fear list of what I don't want to become. And if I don't take care of my responsibilities, I will become that person. Now, what you also want to have is what hoped self is. And what that means is you as a person, there's an ideal person you want to become. And that is an amazing concept. Write down that list. But here's the key. You want to have your hope in front of you and your fear behind you. That's the way it works. If you can do that, you generate maximum motivation. Because
what does that look like when you say if you could do that, to put your fears behind you and the person you hope to be in front of you? I mean, I think that everybody does that every single day when they wake up and aspire to be better, right?
True. That's if you can maintain that combination.
Mm-hmm.
What happens now if fear strikes and the feared person now, your actions today are aligned with the fear person, that you're not holding up your obligations. Now you put your fear in front of you, and what happens? Your hope is behind you. You start going down into yourself and you go into self-sabotage, mode. You can go into, you start beating yourself up. You stop working out. You start going into really bad behavior. You start making really bad decisions. This is where you, like a lot of my clients, let's say, someone will call me and they have a personal relationship issue, and you just tweak them and you change their emotional regulation, and now they're making better decisions. That's what coaching is really about. It's being able to moderate and balance your emotional structure where you can make really good decisions. At the end of the day, when you're emotionally sound, you can make really, really strong decisions in the future. So when a person has fear, they're all about fear, they won't move. It actually makes you freeze. If you flip that around now and you put the hope back in front of you, now you start driving. I don't want to be that person, so that's motivation this way. And I hope to be that person. So now it's what? It's double motivation. I'm moving forward. That's what you want to do. You want to make sure that combination is proper when you're trying to get anywhere. And if it's not proper, understand you flip the equation.
Got it. Yeah, I talk about that a lot as far as attacking your fears. Fears, false events appearing real, right? That's something that I talk about a lot. And I think I live that way every single day. And hopefully everybody listening does. So pretty much this first part of the segment that we've been talking about, I think the first step here for everybody listening is the step number one to get yourself some motivation and get that desire and fire lit is to become your best version of yourself first. Dig deep inside yourself first. Figure out who you are and what makes you unique, and go deep into that first before you do anything else. Is that right?
Absolutely, man. The journey is inside.
And then, so for you, you took that aspect of things, and then you started doing what you love. After you discovered yourself, you started doing motivational coaching, public speaking, TED Talks. You're on stage with some of the biggest motivators and life coaches out there. So how'd you take it from step one all the way up to now you're doing it on a big level? Because people need to know how to take it there. It's one thing to discover yourself within. How do you keep it going and expand and expand and expand and grow?
I think the number one thing there, man, is don't be afraid to put yourself in awkward situations. Don't be afraid to push yourself in your discomfort zone. As in sales, we always say, it's being uncomfortable. That's where you need to be. So your discomfort zone is everything. Now, for me,
do you have any examples of anything uncomfortable or anything unusual that you had to do to get to your success to show people out there?
Excellent question. For me, I always, I had to learn, the number one thing for me was to learn how to negotiate. I think most of us don't understand is we need to learn how to go towards conflict. And for you to be able to negotiate, you have to learn how to say no to people. So set parameters. And then after you say no, you need to have options. I think not many people know these kinds of things. I think once you learn how to negotiate and get yourself to high levels of ability of influence, your outcomes when you go against anything in life, you'll be able to influence and get what you want out of life. So, and I'll give you a really good example. The way I took it is I literally really worked on my communication and negotiation skills. That was the first part. And what that does is, and I'll give you some numbers here. So you have about 27 conversations per day on average. That's what studies indicate. If you take that and multiply it by year, it's 9,072 conversations per year. The average person can influence about 2% without learning how to negotiate and communicate for themselves. That's your ability to influence. Really think about that. If someone who's seasoned sits across from you and can influence about 98%,
you're in trouble.
Think about what's going to happen. Really think about that. So if you see that, you learn that your negotiation skills are everything in life. And I'll take it even deeper, man. Like imagine when you, just to prove to you that you're in negotiation all the time. So right now, everything I'm saying is negotiation. I'm trying to get you to believe in something. That's a sale, bottom line. So whenever, let's say you even take it even further, you're trying to eat a piece of cake or you don't eat a piece of cake. That's a negotiation. So every decision you make is a negotiation factor, has a negotiation factor to it. Why? Because embedded in decision making is negotiation. So it's part of decision making. So if you don't get yourself good there, you're going to be in trouble. So I took a lot of time and I dumped my ability in terms of refining myself into communication negotiation. After that, I started, you need to have the courage to step into different zones where you're not comfortable. And one particular moment for me was actually on stage at a TED Talk, at the TED Talk. And you start seeing your own principles and your hierarchy of principles and what means, what really has value to you. And I remember, like, I was next to go up on stage, but I looked up and it was time to pray. So what do? Here's my hierarchy for me as a person. This is my hierarchy. It's not anybody else. And from there, I made a decision to actually pray. So I took my time and I prayed. And then actually, while I was praying, so what I did overall is with terms of that dominance hierarchy, I put my spirituality over my career. That's what I did. And I maintained that decision when the test came. So what I did is I held strong to my belief structure and who I am. And I actually walked onto stage a minute late. But for me, that's what gives me energy. That's what builds the spiritual battery for me is everything. But so for me, having that courage to be able to do that it gives you strength within you, holding on to who you are as a person. It fortifies your identity. Then the last thing that I did, after you do that and you start gaining success, make sure you find the right people who can mentor you at very high levels. Because when you do that, that information that person has that they're going to be able to give you is everything. Yeah. And then if they can teach you how to apply that information, don't leave that person. Hold on to them with your fingernails. Yeah. That is everything in terms of so those are 3 steps that I use.
Awesome. And I believe a lot of people have trouble finding that mentorship, which is why here at Acez Motivation, we're working on it currently. We're going to make a mentorship program here with a couple different packages. And I know you do the same thing. So we'll make sure to put your information on the bottom here as well. So was that the most uncomfortable moment you went through your success? Was that?
I'm always in my discomfort zone. I live. I don't. I remember when I was having a conversation with David Goggins.
That's hardcore aggressive.
Yeah, and to get him to listen to you for a straight factor was just phenomenal. And he literally said to me, he's like, man, he goes, it talks a lot about you and who you are. And for me, when you get to someone's mind who's like that, I invest myself heavily in time. Why? Because that person has reached things that not many people have touched. They have an emotional code and a mental code that not many people have. That's the expensiveness of the ideas and the emotions that this person has. So whenever you see somebody who's wiser than you, who has more knowledge and experience than you, take what you can from them. So the experience for me is always being in the discomfort zone, always knowing where you are at. Now, there's a factor here, and you got to be very careful. If you are in your discomfort zone and you travel too far, you're too confident, meaning you're overconfident. And if you stay within your comfort zone, you have too much fear. One has too much hope and they're rash, and one has too much fear and they're what? They stand still. They stay within their zone of comfort. So I'll give you an example, like the mother bird telling the baby bird, jump out. One bird has only 2 feathers and they want to jump out. Too much hope. Okay. That should tell you that what's the mother going to do? Come back here. Too much ambition. Hope gives you ambition. Fear gives you what? Precaution. So he should have a little more fear. It's positive fear. So
realistic fear.
Yeah. Wait till you what? Build your wings and your feathers. Now, on the other hand, let's say you have too much fear. You have all your feathers on your wings and you just You have all the strength in the world, but you don't want to jump. That's a problem too. So your discomfort zone should be in between fear and hope, where you're not overconfident and you're not underconfident. That will dictate the parameters of your discomfort zone. And where you don't travel out too far from the actual campground just to get whatever you need in terms of hunting and you get lost, or you don't stay too close where you can't find the food. So that is a key aspect of learning where your next steps are in that discomfort zone.
Awesome. And I'm sure that you failed many times coming to your success. That wasn't an easy road. Obviously, you're saying that most of your journeys, you stay in your uncomfort zone. So it's not easy.
100%. Failure, let me give you something about failure. And I think this is something, again, this is a major point of understanding how it works.
It's part of the formula to success.
100%. So let me give you like a hardcore
Analysis.
Example. So you understand that it's part of the process. It's literally part of the process. And I'll give you how people who look at failure the wrong way through the wrong lens, and I'll explain. So now, the biggest demotivator is rejection, and failure is rejection. So what demotivates us, and it can take us to a state of dejection, which is now you're completely debilitated and you don't want to move forward. So the biggest demotivator is rejection. You got to understand you need that resistance in life to be able to graduate through to get to the next level. That's how it works. So now from here, if you learn how to fall in love with rejection and you turn the no and you flip the O in terms of on, now you become on. Once you become rejected, you turn it on further. If you learn how to do that, nothing in this world can touch you. And let me tell you in terms of how rejection actually works. You need to graduate through that rejection. Why? Because that rejection is going to refine you further, but it's going to give you tools where you can build yourself further. And then that once you beat that challenge, it's going to give you those tools within that formula itself that it has for the next bigger and badder problem. That's the way it works. So now you need to graduate through your challenges, which hold the rejection factor inside of them. They're already embedded. So rejection is embedded in challenge. If you don't take it on, you can stay at home and become a nihilist, and you don't have to take on responsibility. It's okay. See what happens if you do that. So take on life. But let me give you an example in terms of how failure works. If you look at the brain, and what happens when a child is trying to walk? It takes one step and it falls. It balances itself again. It takes another step and it falls. Now, can we call that failure as an outcome? Yes, we can, because it didn't master walking. Now, but what does the brain need to master walking? It needs time to build that process. That's what it does. So what the brain is doing, every time you fail, it's actually gaining, and it's sending signals to the muscles so you can balance yourself further. Can we call that success? Absolutely. So we succeed in the process, but we fail in the outcome. As long as you are succeeding in the process, then you can balance yourself and you build those muscles and those signals to those muscles so you can create the balance. You're always working to gain success, which is that balance in your life. But ultimately, what you're doing, there is no such thing as failure. It's looking at the wrong what?
Lens.
If you look at the outcome that you didn't succeed, then guess what? You're going to look at it as failure. But if you look at it as the process through the lens of the process aspect, you know you just gained one more step towards your goal. There is no such thing as failure. It's just the way you view it.
And I think that's one of the biggest differences between successful folks and unsuccessful folks, at least for now, is that successful folks understand that one of the reasons that I hold my success high is because I've always put myself out there. It didn't matter what the outcome was. I never cared. All that mattered was my purpose and where I was going. And I knew I'd learn on the way. So failure was never an issue because I understand it's part of the process. And I think that's important for everybody listening to understand that as well.
So for me, like, I never thought like I'd be where I'm at, you know, in terms of these kinds of things. But I always had that burning feeling inside. So when I got to TED, I think there was something so really just amazing for me, because I think what happens there, Al, is you get on stage and it's over. And I remember saying to myself, and I walked up to the people around me, and everybody's like, congratulations, this, that. But I said to one of my really close friends, I said to them, what's next? That was that was right when I got off stage. So I didn't look at that I had succeeded. I know I just hit the bottom of my next goal. That's how you have to really look at life, man. The second you think you succeeded, and you're going to lose that motivation inside of you of what's next. I'm not telling you not to celebrate. Go out, have fun, do your thing. But at the end of the day, what's next? You should have that burning sensation.
You're preaching to the choir right now.
That's how it works. So always know, success, you never reach top. You're always hitting the bottom of your next goal. That's the way it works.
But so I'm a senior sales director right now. So I work with sales all the time, and it's a commission-based career.
Mm-hmm.
And you're preaching to the choir. That's me 100%. If you get one client enrolled, who's next? You get 5 clients enrolled, which is a massive day. Who's the next 5? Like, that's always my mindset. And sometimes I drain my team members on my team because they're like, man, like I got 5. Like, just be happy with that. There is no next 5. And some people think like this, and some people that I tried to mentor, or that I still mentor, even have days where they'll be on fire, but the next day it's like they get to that. All right, I got 1, I'm good. I got 2, I'm good. Like, they're happy with that average. And no matter how much you try to talk to them or motivate them or connect with their purpose, what if someone is just happy with the bare minimum? How do you work with these kind of people?
Okay, so that's an amazing question, by the way. I love what you just asked. And the reason for that is there's something that you got to understand about your own being. And the second you become relaxed, you're telling yourself, you're what? I'm okay. I don't need to do further. So there's an emotional code that you need to work on. And what happens here is you have to really drop your success. Once you drop your success and you put yourself in scarcity mode again, which is a different emotional code. So now imagine I tell you tomorrow, you're going to have to what? Work, or you're going to lose your job. That's fear. You have to inject fear back into yourself. That's positive fear. It's not negative fear. Once you gain too much success, you start becoming too hopeful. I could do anything. I'm not telling you, there's a backward cycle to this, by the way, but I'm not going to get into that because it's too complex. But all I'm saying to you is this. Once you get to where you point and you feel like you have stagnation, look into yourself and say, what if tomorrow I don't have anything? It should flip your emotional code. And I should bring myself to such a point that, you know what? I need to pick up that phone again. I need to get that next sale, because sales is quicksand. Literally, if you don't work, you don't gain. But the highest form of people who have any money is sales. And once you understand that sales skills are life skills, it takes you to a whole nother level. But when a person becomes content, and let's say I hit that sweet spot, and man, I feel great. I feel accomplished. If you sit there and you dwell in your accomplishment, understand you will never succeed. Bottom line. Because your celebration at that moment is really diffusing you. And it's changing that structure. Now, what happens here is you can earn something called the fear of what? Success. Because now I wanted to maintain my happy emotion. Guess what happens? I don't want to try anymore because I'm afraid to fail. So now what happens when I get myself to the next point, I can say to myself, when you tell the next guy, you tell him, okay, the next 5, that's the next mark for failure or success. But I want to maintain my success and my emotion, so I stop trying. Because let's say I don't believe that I can do that.
That connects to a lack of confidence, though.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's where it comes from, which I talked, there's a whole subcategory to that.
Yeah.
But if you can burn that into yourself and say, you know what? I don't care what I just got. I'm happy with it, but I need more. You need to maintain that hunger aspect to it. So you need to shift that emotional stage that you're in and shift yourself. Okay, you know what? I'm going to get the next level. That's where I need to be. That maintains that drive. But if you can't do that and you sit there and celebrate and you're afraid to try, and that's the key, you're afraid to try because you want to maintain your happy moment, there's a problem.
Yeah. So your biggest piece of advice would be understand that it connects directly to your success and it destroys your success when you celebrate that moment.
It's you. If you I'm not telling you not to, like I said, I'm not telling you not to celebrate.
But don't sink in your celebration.
Yes, if you sink yourself, and what happens actually when they do psychological studies is you see a person climbing, like they climb up like this. But what happens when they gain the success? They actually dip.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go back up.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go through that dip. That emotional dip is constructed by what? You getting yourself to where you don't want to try again because you feel like you hit what? Top. Yeah. If you tell yourself, I didn't hit top, I'm just have to climb again, you won't go through that loop. And some people actually do this. They go all the way down. Mm-hmm. And they have to go back up because they have to hit rock bottom again. So it's that curve. When you hit that goal, what is it that, how much do you go down again? Or some people just keep climbing. For me, when I'm doing every day on a daily level, I'm never feeling the weight of the stresses of the normal problems that people have. Why? Because at the end of the day, I've graduated through so many things where now all I have to do is maintain, and all I have to do is just put wood, and I have plenty of it. So I'm always gaining. I'm always in a state of gain. It's never where I'm retreating at all. It's I built a track and I'm moving just faster. How you do that is you make really good decisions. You don't have to clean up later. And you just every decision today is laying down more track tomorrow, where you can move faster on your railroad. And then you can hit speeds that people will never even fathom. They don't even understand.
Yeah. That's one thing I truly believe in, is everything connects.
100%, man.
Yeah.
So if I could tell you something there, find your talent, but there's an emotional code that if you do that not many people can touch in terms of losing motivation or coming against hard parts of life. There's something underneath that you build and that's a structure that you will never be unhappy. You'll never feel like you're stressed or overwhelmed. You'll never feel these emotions anymore. You'll deal with the challenge head on, and there's nothing that can stop you. Literally, that's how you feel. And I'm not talking overconfidence. I'm talking about where you know you can do anything in terms of what anybody sets in front of you.
100%. I feel like I'm in that zone a lot.
That's amazing, man. If you can get there, that's amazing.
And the point and the purpose of this channel is to get everybody there. So I'm really glad you're here. You're actually one of the longest shows we've had so far. So a lot of good stuff, man. A lot of good stuff. So this show is called ShotCast. Right? You've given a lot of great information. We want to end it with one shot of inspiration that everybody could walk away with. Okay? Inject them with one shot of inspiration that everybody could walk away with. And what I wanted to relate to is for everybody listening to keep their fire going, or if they don't have a fire, to get it started. What's your one shot to keep people going and just keep them on that fire that we're talking about, that unstoppable feel? How do we get them there, and how do we keep them there?
For me, what I would tell you guys, and this is just coming from a very humble place, and I had to find this within myself. And the minute you go to the inside and you really look at your life and who you are, and a lot of us have a lot of struggles, man. At the end of the day, that's how it works. So look at your struggles, but take some time for yourself and go to the inside and find that spark. There's just a spark right now. It's just a little spark. And give that little voice inside of you that's always guiding you, and it's telling you, like, listen, just listen to me. Listen to me. Give that voice a microphone. That voice is usually the truth, and it tells you what you need to do. Give it a microphone and let it speak, and let it speak in volumes. And once you do that, take that little spark and start adding little bits of firewood on it. Just little things, day by day by day. And if you can do that and become that brutally honest with yourself and no longer lie to yourself, where some of us become professional liars. Have that become your innate nature of who you are. If you can do that, I guarantee you, and I will put my literally right, left arm, my right foot, my left foot, I put everything on it. If you can do that as a person, I guarantee you success. I guarantee it. Have the courage to say the truth in situations that challenge you with the utmost fear. If you can learn how to do that, I guarantee you success.
You learn how to do that by just doing that. When
And
you think
did
about it, you do it.
And that's why.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Thanks so much, Wissam. It's been great having you here, man. A lot of good information for everybody listening. If you're listening and you enjoyed this episode, I got Wissam's link under here. A lot of great stuff on his website. Also, like, subscribe, and share this channel with anybody you love. We want to elevate everybody. We want to elevate the whole universe. So it's ShotCast episode 23.